Welcome to the Paper Trail, where we follow the journey, my journey, through the world of a CEO of a mortgage note fund. I'm Chris 70, and after years of buying, managing, and selling notes with 70 investments, I'm here to share the real stories behind the deals. What went right, what went wrong, and what I wish I knew earlier. From non-performing loans to seller financing to private lending, this show is about more than strategies, about growing your business, learning to follow the paper trail, and doing the due diligence that separates the pros from the rest. Now, let's hit the trail running. Welcome back to another episode of the Paper Trail Podcast. I am your host, Chris 70, and today I'm going to share probably the biggest mistake on a loan, purchasing a loan I ever made. And interesting thing about it is I knew this going in, and it was like, it's one of those things of like touching the hot stove. You know not to touch the hot stove, but I still did it anyways. And I'll share the story. This was probably one of the most frustrating notes I've ever had. So we will dive deep into this and hope you will enjoy this episode. Prior to getting into it, I want to just mention, for those who attended the Paper Trail Conference, again, I want to thank you. Recording this episode actually in October 1st, actually, of 2025. And it is the final quarter of the year. And what typically happens in the final quarter of the year? Inventory. You are going to see a spike in inventory. Typically, you see it in October and November. And then December is, the leftovers. And the stuff that doesn't sell on October, November, you'll see floating back in December. So I want to mention that. So if you're on the hunt for loans, now is going to be a great time. If you are interested in loans, reach out. We have loans for sale. I can put you in contact with other people who have loans for sale. Just tell me what type of loans you're looking for. And one thing I'll just mention, make sure your pricing expectations are in reality. That's the biggest thing. I think the biggest hurdle people make. They want the perfect note at a price of a loan that is not a perfect note. So, and that's why I want to share episodes of this podcast, lessons I've learned. We're talking a lot about bidding on assets and, mistakes that I've made. And my end goal with all of this is to make you wiser, smarter, more experienced, learn from the lessons I've learned as I believe I'm one of the only podcasts out there that really share the stories of case studies and things we've been through. I'm not up here, as you can tell, pitching, marketing you to buy any course from me. I don't have a course. I shut down my membership group. I'm looking at in the future having some seminars for people. Last year we did the Paper Trail Conference, looking at that in 2026 as well. That's it. We have over 950 investors in our fund. That's a completely different animal from people who are actively investing. But, I like to share this with people because, again, I'm not up here just marketing you on how to find notes or anything. I'm rolling up the sleeves and diving in. So, okay, enough of me on my high horse. Let's talk about one of the loans that, I say, I've done this loan twice, my first and last time ever doing it. So, drum roll, please. What was that mistake? Bought a loan that had a 0% interest rate. Even though I bought this loan at a huge discount, it was non-performing at the time. If you listen to my last episode about low interest rate loans that are not, significantly behind, this one, oh man. Ooh, if you're watching this, I can see, how do I turn my head the right way? The gray hairs, the gray is moving up, and I think like a quarter of this is because of just this loan. And you always remember the ones, the most vivid remembrance of loans are the ones that kind of leave the biggest scar. And outside of the Nightmare on Elm Street loan that I've had, that I joint ventured with Jamie Bateman on, that one was a disaster. The 4 feet of water in the basement on a property in Ohio, that one was pretty ugly and messy. Those were probably, and this one were the hardest loans to manage. And I've had other loans. Again, we've done over 750 loans. Yes, we've lost money on loans. Anyone that tells you they haven't been in the business long enough. So yeah, we lose money, but there's two ways to lose money. There's lose money that didn't, the process went through. There's nothing you can do. And you don't have to waste a lot of time on it. Just, hey, deal sucks. Sorry. And then there's the ones that you feel like you went 4 quarters in the trenches and you're fighting an uphill battle. And this was one of them. And, it was a loan that was at 0% interest and borrower's behind. And still, I forget what the discount was, but it was huge, huge discount. But I valued it more as, hey, look, we're going to foreclose on this person. There is no way this person can reinstate or do anything or whatnot. But they did. But what they did do is, and this is where I was a rookie, or I'll call myself a rookie, and allowed them to make not full reinstatement, but make partial payments to get caught up. So they got to a point where they basically got to 2 or 3 months behind. So they made it up. So I got some money coming in the door. I did overpay for this because I was predicting foreclosure. Again, I don't remember the full numbers. But then what happened, and the payment on this loan was I think it was $250 to $300. It was a low monthly payment. So even though I think I paid $12,000 or $15,000 for this loan. And again, the UPB was $30-something thousand or whatever it was. So it was less than 50 cents on the dollar. The issue was the payment was so freaking low, and they got behind. They caught up, but then got behind. What did I not notice? Anyone? Of course, this is a recording, so no one can actually respond to me. Servicing fees. So the borrower would make a payment, miss 2, make a payment, miss 1, make 2, miss 1. So if the borrower isn't consistent, your servicer will put it as non-performing at $95 a month. So 30% plus of that payment was going to the servicer. And there was nothing it would have been cheaper for me to actually make the payments for the borrower to keep them current than it was basically to some of the losses I think I was taking. But that was the issue. Here's the other issue with 0% loans. They may, or typically they don't have a late fee, or they may have a late fee, but big deal, it's $10. There's no default interest or no interest accruing. So if they miss a payment, when they make a payment, it doesn't matter. It just goes towards a principal. I see a lot of land loans out there that people will put out there at 0% interest, thinking, hey, the borrower, they love it because 0% all goes to principal. As a lender, I would run from these. There's no incentive for them to pay. If they're savvy, and let's say payment's $500 a month. They don't make payments for 6 months. You file foreclosure. You go through the whole process, or send a demand letter, $150, whoop-de-doo. For them, it's okay, then you got to wait 30 days. You go through some, process. They're oh, here's 2 months payment. Now, then do you send another demand and spend the $150 that then you got to try and go back and collect? What do you do in those instances? Because taking action it is just going to hurt you. It doesn't help you. So again, you are completely stuck in these 0% loans. And again, you can get them at such a steep discount. It's so enticing. Like, oh, I could get a $30,000 loan for $10,000. And I'm a new investor and all I have is $10,000. I'm going to go buy this $30,000 loan that's written at 0%. That's over, 20 years or even 10 years. 30,000 divided by 120. Okay, it's $250 a month. Woohoo! So I'm gonna get $3,000 a month. I'm gonna get 30% on my $10,000. Oh no, $250. All of a sudden you have the servicing fees and everything else. You may be lucky if you're getting $1,500, and that's if it's over 10 years. A lot of times these payments are over 20 years or more. So you might see payments of like $150, $200 on some of these loans. When you see those low monthly payments, understand your costs, because it's $200 and you got to pay $95, and that's of today. I don't know what the non-performing charges are anymore, but let's say it's $95. It's basically cutting it in half, and you're not getting that consistent cash flow. You're not getting 12 payments a year. You're getting 10 and 11, and then they're keeping enough, and then maybe next year you get 12, but then they go back to 9. You go to foreclosure, they'll get you 12. It's this back and forth. And then because you have the inconsistent pay history, how do you sell it? You can't sell a loan. I mean, somebody's going to look at it and basically like, this isn't really performing. It's non-performing, but I'm getting, give me the pay history that shows you made 10 payments and you made $1,000 last year on this thing. After all your expenses. Is it worth all that headache of dealing with a non-performing loan or semi-performing loan for $1,000 a year? How much time were you spending on it? That was the biggest thing. I was spending so much, and this was before I had my company. I was doing this all alone. I had several hundred loans. At one point in time, I had over 200 loans I was managing all by myself. This was a time when I had 50 to 75 loans, and I'm sitting here spending the most amount of time on the loan that's providing the least amount of value to me, because I was so stuck on figuring out how to win on this thing. How can I figure it out? What can I do? Do I file foreclosure? Okay, great. You send a demand, spend the $150, and then, great. They reinstate and they give you the $150, but your money was out the door for, 60 days. So you're waiting 60. So you're basically, again, you're not making any money on your money, because even if you have legal and all that stuff, you can't charge to it. So you're basically, again, giving no interest loans. So you're putting money out the door, which is costing you money to have it come back in. So, what's your cost of capital? So, yeah. And on this one, man, this borrower just had me so frustrated, because they knew how to play the game. They knew that if they would get it 90 days behind and then just say, okay, are they going to send the demand or not? If they don't send the demand, they would just keep letting it roll. Then you send the demand, and then they would basically, reinstate it and make the payments. Even if they made the 4 months of payments from 4 months behind, great, you got it, but you didn't get it. You got 4 months later, and what they would do, still not pay. And your servicer, even if they reinstate, and this is important, understand, read your servicing agreement. At the Paper Trail conference, Kevin Cordell Madison was up on stage, and we were talking about this, and we were talking about how to manage your servicers. And I asked Kevin, what's the biggest mistake people make? He's like, not understanding the contract. And I agree 100%, because of some of the stuff I see people post on Facebook. Why didn't my servicer do this? Or why didn't my servicer, there's one post about the floods in North Carolina, and someone made a comment. They're upset with their servicer that didn't go check on the property for them. And I made a comment. I'm like, well, did you request it from the servicer, and did you actually pay them to go look? Or contact the borrower? The area had no power, no phone. And, basically they were upset with the servicer. That servicer hadn't made contact with the borrower. And they're like, how do you, it's your loan. If you want the servicer to make contact with the borrower, pick up the phone and call a servicer or email them and say, hey, can you make contact or can you send somebody out? And of course, you have to pay for that. Now, make contact, they make the phone call for you, typically as a courtesy. But if there's no phones or, no phone lines and they don't have a cell phone number or whatnot, what do you want them to do? The only way would be in-person communication. And that's a big thing that people don't understand is reading these contracts. And in the contract, just because a borrower reinstate doesn't mean it's not still under that special servicing. I believe it's three consecutive monthly payments. So if a borrower misses 3 months and makes all 4 months at once, misses 3 months, makes all 4 months at once, in their mind, because they're still doing all the reach out and everything, that is a non-performing loan. And you are going to get charged the non-performing rates. Thankfully, in this one, the borrower did have insurance. But if they didn't, think about that too. You're paying forced place insurance. You can add it to the loan. It's basically at zero. You're not getting any interest on it. And you get that payment every 4 months as well. So that's a great deal for a borrower if you think about it. Somebody gives you money and you can go 4 months, 5 months without having any interest or any payments due, and then just be like, I'll give it to you whenever I want. And they knew that. And what's interesting is, if we sent the demand at 90, they would pay. If we didn't send the demand, they wouldn't pay until we sent the demand. They knew exactly how to play the game. And I think what frustrated me the most or pissed me off the most on this is, I'm very, very competitive, if you didn't know that. I also like to win. And in this one, I was so frustrated because I lost. It's like, this guy got me. He duped me. And that burned me. The fact that I was like, damn, he got me. And it's like, hey, now that I turned 50, and this was probably when, this is, I don't know, when I was in my early 40s, I was still at that point where I really didn't like to lose, and I'd take it personally and figure out try a way to win. Today, it's more of, my mindset is, hey, you take your losses, you move on, because looking back, and I've always been the type of person that, I won't look back and dwell on it and learn from my mistakes. But man, as you can tell in this episode, how I'm talking to you. This one stings. This one did sting, because it was just like so frustrating. And, the arrogance of the borrower too. And as the lender, you sometimes think, hey, I'm the lender, I've got, the quote unquote higher ground. Oh no, not in this one. This guy, I was at the bottom of the valley and he was on, the mountaintop, complete control. And again, nothing I could do. So looking back, as we wrap up this episode, so it's maybe like, okay, Chris, you got burned. What do you do in these instances? First, I wouldn't buy 0% loans. I wouldn't. If you do buy 0% loans, that discount has to be significant. And even if it's a performing loan, even if it's performing, let's say the borrower was never, ever behind on a payment. I would only assume 8 or 9 payments a year in that calculation and bid off of that. And I would probably assume some discount on service. I mean, I would just discount that value so much that I don't think it would they would almost have to give this thing away for me to take on another one. Now, I am in different shoes today. Because I do have a fund and, we have a decent portfolio. If you're just starting out, it's like, great, Chris, you got a $50 million fund. You can do this. I've only got $10,000 or $15,000 to my name. I might go after something like this because it's a $30,000 note that maybe I can get for $10,000 or $12,000 or whatever that number is. I didn't do the math in my head, so I'm just throwing numbers out there. I'm not telling you should pay 30 cents on dollars for these. Run the numbers. I'm just in my head throwing numbers out there. And let's say it's a land loan that you can get for $10,000. Again, run the numbers to see, okay, if if it goes non-performing and I got to pay $95 a month, what does that look like? How do my numbers look? Maybe the borrower continues to pay and, I just got burned. But look at it. Again, the whole point of this series is look at the other avenues and options to see how they impact. Because if the loan payment is only $100 a month, 95 of it goes to the servicer. If it's not performing, you're basically making zero on that thing. So it has to have enough meat on the bone as a payment from that borrower. And, just really got to dive into the numbers on it and what makes sense. And again, because I know people buy these, especially on land. And you can still make money. I'm not saying you're not making money on them. I'm not saying they potentially are bad deals. I'm just saying you can be burned pretty badly. So just be careful. And the whole, again, premise is, for me, as part of these episodes, I am sharing some of the mistakes we made. I want you all take this. Again, take it with a grain of salt if you want. And you could be buying 50 0% loans and they're paying on time, great, and you're buying them at a discount and the cash flow is awesome. You're selling off partials to other people as well, and life is good. That can happen too. All I'm trying to do is share with you, because a lot of people, especially on social media, only post the rosiest of red stories. Everything is great. Everything is wonderful. Have you ever seen on social media someone basically saying, my marriage sucks. I hate my marriage. There's no, what going on or anything like that. Or, people being truly honest and open about that. Or I fight with my spouse every other day. That's not me, by the way. But, that happens. I know, again, people go through challenges, of course, in life with relationships and everything. You never see any of that on social media, do you? What do you see? People's vacations, people with their kids winning, people celebrating. You see the wins. You rarely see the losses. And for me, I'm not afraid on the note investing space to come share my losses, to come share my mistakes. And again, I feel like I'm one of the only people that do that. So I hope people appreciate that. And if you do appreciate it, make sure to leave us a like, review on your favorite listening station, a little plug right there. But no, as we wrap up this episode, I hope you truly do appreciate some of these podcasts that we do provide, because I hope you can find them valuable in trying to benefit you for your note investing journey. If you want to stay in touch, get on our mailing list, reach out to us, go to 7einvestments.com. Again, we put out notes for sale. We're going to be having some seminar programs, diving deeper into some of this stuff. Or if you're looking to sit on the sidelines and invest in some type of offering, check out 7einvestments.com. You can check the offerings that we have live and at any time. And we have investor relations people, asset management people, myself. We're always willing to talk to you to see how we can better you and understanding the note space and this journey that we all go through. So thank you. Take care. And as always, I will catch you on the next one. Thanks for joining me on this episode of The Paper Trail. I hope today's insights help you sharpen your note investing strategies. If you found value in this conversation, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with fellow investors. I'm Chris Seveny, reminding you to keep doing the work, trust the process, and always follow the paper trail. Until next time.